Good morning, my good friends. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my live stream. Welcome, welcome. That was David Gilmour. David Gilmour guitar, unsurpassed. Let me introduce myself. My name is Andre Lefevre, and I am a citizen journalist. I am an extreme libertarian, and I like to mouth off on things political, things cultural, things interesting. And we have a full live stream today. Couple of things we will cover today. One, looks like some Democrats are predicting that Robert Mueller will indict Don Jr. and Jared Kushner in the near future. We are going to we're going to call Robert Mueller's spokesman Peter Carr on a live stream, and hopefully we can get a comment from him. Also, it looks like the communist South African government is beginning the confiscation of land from the white farmers. Straight act of racism, straight act of Nazi lefty communism. J.C. Lee Peters had a conversation yesterday on camera with Willem Petzer, a Boer blogger and citizen journalist from South Africa. I'm going to play you a portion of it, very illuminating. Also, it looks like Russia may take as many as 150,000 Boers, white Afrikaners, to resettle them in Russia, in southern Russia. And what I see on the news also is John McCain. His family says that he is stopping his brain cancer treatment. We're going to call on the live stream. We're going to call his office and get a comment from them. But first things first, let's start with Don Jr. and Kushner. Rumors that they're going to be indicted. This is from The Hill. Dem lawmaker predicts Trump Jr. Kushner will be indicted by Mueller. And there is a short vid up here, fair use. Before I call Peter Carr, the Mueller's spokesman, let me set this up. So this is not very long. This is just 22 seconds long. And of course,
I think they're getting closer to knowing that the truth's going to come out, that there was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing...
And this was Steve Cohen, Democrat congressman from Tennessee. Let me start from the beginning again. Here we go.
Well, I think they're getting closer to knowing that the truth's going to come out, that there was activities with the Trump campaign in Russia and releasing those hacks and guiding them to the states and the localities where they came from. Some of that was Jared Kushner's responsibilities. Some of it was Donald Jr. I think you're going to probably see indictments of both of those people.
All right. So that was Democrat Congressman Cohen from Tennessee. So let's dial the Robert Mueller's office. Peter Carr is their spokesman. And let's see here. I think I have a picture of him here. That's what he looks like. And we are calling him. Calling Peter Carr.
Hello, this is Peter.
Good morning, Mr. Carr. This is Andre Lefevre, wildnews.us, and I'm live streaming this phone call. How are you today?
I'm good. How can I help you, sir?
Pretty good. The Democratic Congressman Cohen yesterday gave an interview and said that you guys are ready to indict Don Jr. and Mr. Kushner. Is there any truth to that?
I will decline to comment.
Okay. And the second question, and this is a serious question. Does Robert Mueller, Special Counsel, considers themselves as part of the executive branch, and do you guys recognize Donald Trump as the chief executive?
I'll decline to comment.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye. All right, so I'm not surprised that Peter Carr did not comment on the upcoming investigation of upcoming indictment, yay or nay, on whether they're ready to indict Don Jr. and they're ready to indict or Jared Kushner. But what I am very surprised, so when I asked them if they consider themselves part of the executive branch and recognize Donald Trump as the chief executive, he also said no comment. It has been said that Robert Mueller considers himself as a watchdog over the president and above him, and that troubles him. Again, right now, I just called just a minute ago on the live stream. I asked Peter Carr, who is the spokesman for Robert Mueller, two questions. First, if they're ready to indict Don Jr. and Jared Kushner, and he said no comment. I have no problems with that. That's pretty standard. I asked him a second question. Does Robert Mueller and his crew considers them part of the executive branch, and do they recognize Donald Trump as the chief executive? And I got a no comment again. And this is very troubling. This is extremely troubling answer. Extremely troubling answer in a democratic republic, where you have an unelected official refusing to admit what they are. I don't think there's any constitutional lawyer or constitutional scholar that would not say that Robert Mueller is part of the executive branch, and our Constitution is very clear. Donald Trump, the president, is the head of the executive branch. Again, just a moment ago, I called Peter Carr, who is the spokesman for the Robert Mueller's Special Counsel crew, and I asked them whether they consider themselves part of the executive branch and whether they recognize Donald Trump as the head executive. And instead of saying yes, which is constitutionally, that's what they are, I got a no comment. Interesting. All right, moving on. This is about South Africa. This is from Daily Caller. What's going on in South Africa? This is the headline. And let me move this down a little bit. What's going on in South Africa, and why is Trump tweeting about it? President Donald Trump says he wants the Department of State to look into plans by South Africa to seize land from white farmers. Land expropriation has long been one of the South Africa's most divisive political issues, but the ruling African National Congress appears ready to move forward with plans to redistribute white-owned land. Many left-leaning commentators say Trump is parroting all right and white nationalist talking points by referring to the large-scale killing of white farmers. Let me say a couple of things about that. Alt-right is a made-up word by the liberal Nazis, by the Democratic Party. There's no such thing as alt-right. The white supremacists in the United States have no traction. Most of them are either deranged individuals or the plans by the Democratic Party, or they are the entrapment tools by the federal government. Organically, if you can have 1,000 people who believe in white supremacy in the United States, I think that would be too many. The March for Rights of the White People in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago attracted 20 people. 20 people. It was organized by somebody who is, last name is Spencer, I forget his first name right now, and he's also proven to be a Democratic operative who worked for Obama's Occupy Wall Street. So there is no organic alt-right movement. There is no organic white supremacy movement. This is all invention of the left. So the white South Africans, especially the Boer farmers, are facing genocide. They're being killed, maimed, and now the government is beginning, South African government is beginning to confiscate their land. J.C. Lee Peterson had an interview with Willem Patzer of South Africa. And fair use, I'm going to play you a few minutes of it. Enjoy. Fair use.
400 farmers were attacked in 2017, between 1 to 2 killed every week. Is that true?
Yeah, that's the official police statistics that we have. About 2 farmers are attacked per day and about 2 are killed per week. The statistics that we have at AfriForum says that there were 438 farm attacks in total last year.
Well, I would like to know, why did white South Africans allowed to get to this point before they start fighting back?
Well, I would say the biggest problem that we had was massive propaganda against us by the communists, and the fact that the Afrikaner is an extremely religious people, and the churches basically started to incorporate this communist propaganda in their sermons in the 70s and more so in the 80s. We had this one guy in our biggest church here called the Dutch Reformed Church. His name was Johan Haynes, and he was basically a communist propagandist, and he worked his way up to become the moderator of the Dutch Reformed Church.
And so when I report that the government is predominantly black now, right, and it's controlled by the ANC, is that true?
Yeah, the ANC controls almost 60%, and then the EFF, which is basically a more radical version of the ANC, controls about another 7%. And the thing that we see here is the EFF, who controls 7%, are actually the ones making the policies, because the EFF pushed for a policy, and then a few years later, that's the ANC's official policy, and that's been happening every time.
That's amazing. I read that the farmers' lives are at risk, and that there are blacks who are going out to the farmlands and they're robbing and stealing and killing, and nothing is being done about that. Is that true?
Yeah, I wouldn't say nothing's being done about it. Of course, the normal crime procedure is done against them, but the problem that we have is that it's not being treated as a special problem, because it's a very big problem. It happens all the time, and actually a good friend of mine, his name is Ernst Roots, he recently wrote a book that he did a lot of research for, in which he proved government complicity in these farm attacks.
And I also read that a lot of many of the whites who are being killed don't believe that this is racial, that is happening because of their race, that they're white, and so they're not armed and they're not protecting themselves. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say the older generation, in their minds, they still live in the old South Africa. So in their minds, they are still safe and everything. But I would say the younger generation is a lot more aware of what's going on around them, and they arm themselves to the teeth, basically.
Have this attack or these attacks affected your family in any way so far?
Yeah, my great aunt and great uncle were actually murdered in such a farm attack. They were tortured for about 6 hours, and then the farm attacker took their blood and he wrote on the walls messages like 666 and White Devil and so forth.
That's amazing, man. And so what's going to happen? How's this whole thing going to end?
Well, I don't know. All we can do is prepare for the worst and pray that the worst doesn't happen.
Amazing. And so is it true that some white farmers are stuck there because, they're poor, they can't afford to leave? And I don't know what to ask you. Tell us, what should we be doing to help you guys over there?
Of course.
Hold on a second.
Of course, I think, especially now, it's not possible for farmers to leave anymore because they won't be able to sell their farms in the situation that the country is in, because the farms are now basically useless or worthless to people, because nobody would want to buy it in a country where the state explicitly said that they are going to take it away without compensation. So these farmers aren't able to sell their farms anymore, and that's a bit of a problem. As if you say, what can you guys do to help that side? One thing that I have realized that's really been helping a lot is if different churches start to connect amongst each other and to South Africa, where the people come together and pray and they lobby for the government to do something. I know in Australia this has worked extremely.
I just played a couple of minutes of this. Go to Jesse Lee Peterson's YouTube channel, and you can get the full interview. It's about 2 hours long. The white farmers, the Boers, are facing genocide in South Africa. It got to the point where about 150,000 of them are planning to move to Russia. At least they petitioned the Russian government to move to the southern Russia, Sevastopol region, which has good land. Estimated they would need about $100,000 per family to buy land in Russia and to cultivate it. It's interesting. I'm going to follow that story. If I could, I'd like to get a comment from the Russians, and maybe I can get somebody from South Africa to comment on this story. So I will be following it. Moving on. The next story is this one. Where is this one from? This was in Washington Times. McCain family says he's stopping treatment for brain cancer. And I think this is from this morning. And let me read you a couple of paragraphs. And after that, we're going to call his office and see if we can get a comment. Senator John McCain's family said Friday that he is discontinued medical treatment for his cancer, saying the disease has progressed too far to be worth fighting. Mr. McCain has been battling an aggressive cancer at his home in Arizona, hasn't been attending the Senate this year, attempting recovery. Let's call, let's see, let's call his Washington, D.C. office, and let's get a comment on that. Let's see here. I know I have it in my, because I called his office before. John McCain. Yep, calling John McCain's office.
Thank you for calling the office of Senator John McCain. If you have a comment regarding a legislative issue and would like to leave a message for the senator, please press 1. If you need immediate assistance and would like to speak to a member of the senator's staff, please press 2. If you are calling...
Senator McCain's office, how we may help you?
Good morning, sir. My name is Andre Lefevre from wildnews.us, citizen journalist. I'm live streaming this phone call on Periscope. And I'd like to ask about the condition of Senator McCain, medical condition.
Well, sir, we recently released a statement about his health condition, but nothing has changed since then.
Does he expect to stay in office and not resigning for the continuation of his term? Hello, sir?
Sorry, sir, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I couldn't for a second. You're back.
Oh, okay. I'm asking, does Senator expect to formally stay in office for the remainder of his term?
Yes, as long as he's with us, sir, yes.
Okay, does his condition permit him to travel to Washington, D.C. for any official business to the best of your knowledge?
Sorry?
Does his medical condition allows him to travel to DC, to Washington DC at any time for his?
Cannot speak to that, sir.
You cannot speak. Listen, I will pray for the senator. God bless you, and thank you for talking to me.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too. That was a little curt, but I'm sure they're inundated with phone calls. So Senator McCain, from what I understand, is bedridden in Arizona and will not participate in the official business. And he doesn't want to resign his office. So I'm not going to say anything about that. The man is sick, and let's say a prayer for him, regardless of whether you agree with him or not. Let's say a prayer for the man. This is the end, pretty much the end of the live stream. The most interesting part was at the very beginning, where I called the Peter Carr, who is the spokesman for the Robert Mueller's crew, and I asked them two questions: whether they're planning to indict Don Jr. and Jared Kushner, and I got no comment. And then I asked another question. I asked them whether they considered themselves as part of the executive branch and whether they accept Donald Trump as the chief executive. And to my very surprise, I got a no comment again. And I find that troubling. I find it troubling that constitutionally Robert Mueller is part of the executive branch, and he is the employee of Donald Trump, who is the employee of the rest of us, American citizens. But since Peter Carr did not just said no comment, he left a possibility that Robert Mueller thinks of himself as something above the U.S. Constitution, and I find that very, very troubling. Let's see what happens. I may be back today. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me on my live stream. I appreciate it a lot more than I can ever express. And ladies and gents, God bless you. God bless you.